A few people embrace change, or they're always seeking change, and they should be like, it's okay where we're at. But change is hard, and it's coming, and it's next week. And so we're going to talk about stepping out and being like, okay, we're going for it, even when we don't feel like it. So that's what we're talking about this morning. And I'm trying to wait for Derek to get in here, but this is what we're going to do. Kids, who wants to be, kids, do you want to be the disciples? Anyone want to be the disciples and come up here? Yeah, come up here. If you want to be a disciple, come up here and get in the boat. Come get in the boat. Warning, you might get wet and it might get windy. Right up there. So if you're a kid and you want to be a disciple, come up here. Sit down in that boat. There you go. Good job, guys. Good job. How many we got? 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Whoa. There we go. Riley, come in the boat. Down here. She wants to be on stage. You're so cool. You guys are so cool. So you guys are the 12 disciples. Do you guys know the 12 disciples? Can you name them all? Everyone in here is like, I got to 5. Who's left? So you guys are 12 disciples. You know what just happened right before the disciples got in the boat? Is they fed the 5,000 men. Most likely there's more than 10,000 people there with women and children. There's probably 12, 13,000 people that they actually fed. So, miracle of feeding 5,000, even more impressive, right? But that is directly before this. Jesus is like, hey, you guys, I'll take care of this. You guys get in the boat. You guys go across. I'll follow you. I'll be with you later. And then they take off in a boat, like you guys are in a boat right now, right? You're in a boat, kind of. Just sit in the boat, you're going to fall out. So they're in a boat, and they start going across. And what happens? A storm starts to come. First, the waves. The waves just start ripping at the boat. And then the wind came. Uh-oh, the wind's coming. The wind is coming. That's pretty good wind. It's getting stormy, and then it started raining everywhere. It started raining. Oh no! It's raining. Ah! And then what happened? Okay, we can turn that off. It's super loud for a second. Exactly. The disciples were afraid. They didn't like it. They covered their faces, just like you were covering your faces. They got scared because it's so windy and so stormy. But then what happened? Jesus came and he started walking on the water. He started walking on the water. And they got really afraid. Now you have to be really afraid. Have you ever seen someone walk on water? No, that'd be scary, right? That'd be scary. So everyone look afraid. Look, I'm going to be Jesus, walking on the water. Be afraid. Be afraid. You don't have to hide. Just be afraid. There, that's good. I'm Jesus. And then he goes, hey, I'm Jesus, guys. Remember me? They're spraying me with water. The storm is still going, so that makes sense. Hey, Ryan, you want to be Peter? You want to be Peter? Stand up. Ryan, you're going to be Peter, so stand up and get out of the boat. You got to come out of the boat because you're Peter. He walks on water. You want to do it, buddy? Okay, come out and walk on water. Okie dokie. So you start walking on water. Nope, face me. Walk towards me just a little bit. Away from the boat. Over here. Come over here towards everybody out here. So you're walking on water. Now the waves start up again. And the wind and the water. Come on, Brian. Get the wind, Brian. And the water's hitting him all over. And he gets scared. Are you scared? Ah! And then Jesus comes. And he pulls you up out of the water because you started sinking. At first, you were doing really good. You were walking on water, but then you started sinking. And then Jesus came and he grabbed your hand and he said, it's going to be all right. And then you got back in the boat. And then Jesus got in the boat. The boat wasn't like very big. I saw an actual one when we were in Israel, like the size they would actually be. Not big. I would be scared too. And then Jesus got in the boat too, and guess what happened to the storm? It stopped. Jesus stopped storms more than once. That's pretty cool, right? Is everyone all wet? Because I'm all wet. You guys can go sit down. Good job, disciples. Good job, disciples.
I like doing that.
You like doing that? I don't know why they sprayed me so much. That seems weird. But it always, I think it's funny how there's rises and falls with the disciples, especially with Peter, but with the disciples. It's like they just fed 12,000-ish people. This is disgusting. They just fed 12,000-ish people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. And then they get in a boat and they go across and there's a storm and they freak out and they think they're going to die. Like it's like from spiritual high to just in the dumps, right? Where you just think life could be over. And that's how our lives go. Especially like camp. High school camp this year was amazing. Both camps were good. But I was on worship team for high school camp. I was playing guitar. Just the presence of God was there as soon as we stepped on the camp. It was like, blow, we're ready to go. And it was so refreshing, so good. It was like the mountaintop. And then junior high camp came around, and I was a dean. And you're in charge of disciplinary stuff. You're not on worship team anymore. You're not even in the service most of the time. You're outside because kids are running out. And you're like, no, go back in there. Stop trying to hide in the bathroom, you know. So that's more what you're dealing with at junior high camp. And I got dry super quick. I was just on the mountaintop, just spending time with Jesus all the time, playing worship with him all the time, helping with a worship workshop, just good stuff all day, and the presence of God so thick, and then being outside of chapel most of the time, and I crashed and burned at junior high camp. I ran out. The tank was empty, like super quick, and I just thought, oh, junior high camp will be a breeze. High school camp was a breeze, and I was so refreshed. Junior high camp will be the same, right? Didn't see it coming. It was a lot more work, and I knew how much work it was, because this is the 3rd year being a dean. But for some reason, I just wasn't ready for it. And I crashed and burned, and I had to do all this apologizing to the camp director and stuff like, dude, I'm sorry for how I acted yesterday. That was bad. Not so good, you know? And all this stuff. But that's how we go. We have the ups, the amazing highs. You're like Moses on the mountain. How many examples can we go with? He just spent all his time with God. He wrote on the tablets. He comes down. He sees what they're doing. He's like, ah! And he throws the tablets down and he breaks them. High to low. God just wrote on those things, man. What were you thinking? I have this trivia question that I ask people sometimes. I'm like, how much of the Bible is God breathed or something like that? And people are like, oh, all of it. And I'm like, nope, there's 2 parts that God actually wrote. And they're like, oh. And nobody's laughing at this joke, you know. Because he wrote the 10 Commandments. He actually wrote, you know, it says like he wrote them into the stone. And then the king in Babylon, God came and wrote on the wall. Do you remember that? So God actually wrote twice himself, not just somebody else writing it. So note to yourself. My tricky trivia question. Let's go for another one, the ups and the downs. Peter's walking along with Jesus, and Jesus goes, hey, who do you say I am? And, and they go through a little bit of conversation, and Peter goes, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And what does Jesus go? He goes, wow, this was revealed to you by God, not by man. This is amazing. Way to go. And then the very next story, they're walking towards Jerusalem, and Jesus goes, hey, I'm going to go to Jerusalem, and I'm going to die there. And Peter gets in front of him and goes, no, you can't go there. You must stop. And Jesus, you know what Jesus calls him? Anyone remember? Satan. He looks at Peter and goes, get behind me, Satan. Because he's trying to stop Jesus from doing what he was called to do on this earth. And Peter goes from Jesus praising him, going, you know it because God revealed this to you, to get behind me, Satan. In like the same chapter. I think it's the same chapter even. It's like the first section and the second section. Great, terrible. You know? That's how Peter was. Like a miracle would happen and then he would just deny Jesus 3 times. You know, Peter is one of my favorite. Always will be my favorite probably because of that. Because I see my life sometimes going like that. I see God do something and then I come back and I'm like, wow, how did I get back to this right after seeing God do this? And that's what he did. And then he cuts off the guy's ear, even though Jesus has repeatedly told him, that's not it. We're not going to fight. We're not going to overthrow Rome. Not like that. But he's still carrying a sword with him. All the disciples still thought that. Ups and downs, right? Ups and downs. They fed 12,000 people. They got in a boat, and a storm came, and they freaked out. And they, all of what they've heard, all of what they learned from Jesus, all of what they just saw went out the window. 12,000 people just got fed. Guys, you don't think you can pray for the storm to go away? And it happens again, right? When they're going across with Jesus in the boat and he's asleep, and Jesus gets up and he rebukes the wind and the waves. And again, they're afraid. They're always like disciples. And we're called to be disciples of Christ, so I guess we're called to be up and downers, right? Oh, man. I just love this story. I love this story. It's just Peter's boldness, his faith in Jesus. Jesus goes, come on out. And he takes a step out of the boat and he starts walking. And he's feeling good about himself probably at this point. He's looking at Jesus going, oh my gosh, I'm walking on water. And then the wind and the waves get to him. The craziness of life, the trials, the struggles, they get to him. And he starts to look down at the things around him, the things that are the wind blowing, the waves crashing, probably now against his calves as he's sinking a little lower and a little lower. And now it's up to his knees and he's going, oh my gosh, I'm sinking. And his eyes are just downcast, scared, afraid. And Jesus comes over and goes, you tried. Good effort. Way to come. You have little faith. Get out of here. Get in the boat. As soon as it doesn't even say Jesus spoke anything. It says gets in the boat and the wind went down. That was it. It was over. I'm like, what would it have been like to be the one person besides Jesus to get out of the boat? The one person besides Jesus to walk on water. Because he still walked on water. Someday when we're in heaven, you can go up to Peter and be like, hey man, what did it feel like to walk on water? And there was a whole bunch of waves, so I don't even know what that was like. Was it like he would go up and down kind of with the waves, but he was still on top? I don't know. What did it look like? What did it feel like? But Peter got to do that. But he wouldn't have got to do that if he didn't have the faith in the first place to step over the side of the boat. And I think that's where we are right now. We're not necessarily in a storm right now, but I think Jesus is calling us out of the boat, and he's saying, it's time to go. It's time to walk on the water. I will be there for you. Keep your eyes on me. But it's time to get out of your comfort zone. It's time to get out of the boat that you've known. They were fishermen. He knew the boat. The boat was safe. The boat was something that was comfortable. And Jesus was calling out of that. Be uncomfortable. I think being a Christian is about being uncomfortable. I don't even like the term Christian anymore because too many people use it. I prefer Christ follower or something like that. But to be a Christ follower, he's calling you to be uncomfortable. The disciples were almost never comfortable as they went with Jesus. I say this all the time because this is one of my favorite arguments, but also one of my favorite parts about the disciples is that after they put in a new 12th after Judas was gone, number 6, you guys are remembering now the rest of the disciples. Remember earlier I asked the kids and they couldn't say it. And I said you got to 5 and then I just said Judas. That's 6. I'm helping you. Bad jokes. But they grafted in a new 12th disciple and they went out preaching. 11 out of 12, I've said this so many times, 11 out of 12 died martyrs because of what they spoke and what they did in Jesus' name. 11 out of 12. Their lives weren't comfortable. They didn't have a comfortable church that they got to go to every Sunday morning and be like, Jesus, and then go home and just do whatever. Their lives were uncomfortable. They went into situations that weren't comfortable. Paul was in prison for so long. That's when he wrote most of his letters. Being a Christ follower isn't about being comfortable and being on a lazy boy chair and watching the NFL every Sunday morning. That's not what being a Christian's about. Or, if you're a Mariner fan, watching Mariners almost every night, because they play every night. It's great. Other than sports, it's watching cooking shows. Or going shopping all the time. I hate shopping so much. And every time Eleanor wants to go shopping, I'm like, oh gosh, please don't ask me to go with you. But I go anyways, because I love her and I love being with her. So it's not as bad as it sounds. The shopping part's bad, but being with her is good, right? Win-win lose or something like that. But 11 out of 12 died a martyr's death. And the 12th one, I've said this a million times, was John. He wrote Revelation. They tried to kill him 2 or 3 times. He just wouldn't die. Boiled him alive, made him drink poison. Kids are here. Whoop! John! Good for you, buddy. And he got sent to an island. He wrote Revelation. But this is what I feel this morning, is that it's time for us to get out of that boat. It's time for us to get uncomfortable, go somewhere where we need Jesus to keep us afloat, keep us walking on water. That's what that song Oceans is all about. He called us out upon the waters. He didn't call us to sit in the boat and relax. He didn't call you to get a flotation device and, get in your swimsuit and sunbathe on the Sea of Galilee. He called you out on the water to walk, to do stuff that's uncomfortable, that's different, that's more than you could think or imagine. That's what He's called us to. The Bible says greater things will you do than Jesus ever did. And there's a part in the New Testament where it said, Jesus did all these things and we didn't even record them all. There were so many things. He said, but more you guys will do. The followers of Christ will do. And I know there's miracles that happen where they're needed. Here, we're comfortable. The United States of America, we're comfortable. We all have, most of us, have enough money, enough food. And if we don't, there's places to get it, right? There's places where there is no food, there's no water. And they need God to provide for them. They get sick, there is no doctor, they pray. Because it's the only thing left. And miracles are happening all the time. My favorite one is there's a pastor, and he was sick, and he did get to go to a doctor, and he died on the operating table. And the doctor comes out and goes to his wife and goes, I'm sorry, we lost him. And she looked at him and she goes, that is unacceptable. That was her response to the doctor saying your husband has just died. That is unacceptable. She took a couple of her ladies in there with her, and they started praying over him, and he came back to life. That's what's happening in other areas of the world. I think, this is just my opinion, but I think they don't happen as often in the United States because we don't rely on God. We don't step out of the boat. We're like, okay, I'm sick, I'm in the boat. What keeps me in the boat and gets me well? I guess I can go to the doctor. Not saying doctors are bad, but we don't need God for most things. We have our food, we have our money, we have our doctors, we have our cars, we have the people around us. We don't rely on God for much. But I think it's time for us to step out of the boat and start relying on Him. I don't know what that looks like in your life. Maybe He's asking you to volunteer somewhere you wouldn't expect. Go feed homeless or go give to the poor or do something different than where you're at right now. Maybe He's asking you to start preaching or go to Bible college, be a pastor. You're like, that sounds terrible. Sometimes, But maybe that's what He's calling you to. Maybe He's like, you should be in the youth ministry helping out. And you're like, I don't even like youth. That's how it starts, right there. But maybe he's calling you to do something more, not just more, but something that is uncomfortable. Stepping out of the boat wasn't the easy thing to do for Peter. He knew the boat. He was a fisherman. He knew all that stuff. But he said, okay, Jesus, I'm with you. I will come. I'll go wherever you go. I'll step out of that boat. And again, he went from high to low because he had faith and was looking right at him, and then he sank, So what is it? What is it in your life that he's calling you out of the boat to do? What is it that's going to be uncomfortable for you to do that he's calling you to do? So let's close our eyes and bow our heads and have the worship team come forward. We have kids in here, so I'm not going to go super long and keep talking forever. I know how the kids are. So just take a moment right now and think. I believe God's speaking to us all the time. We talked about that last week, how it's a still small voice. Take a moment and think and listen to Jesus. What has he been speaking to you? What has he been asking you to do that maybe you haven't been listening, or you heard and you've ignored, or you've put off? You're like, yeah, God, I'll do that, but not yet. What are those things? How is it going to look in your life to step out of the boat onto the water? And we might sink. It's not like Peter didn't. He was good for a while, and then he sank, and he had to be pulled up by Jesus. He might call you out, and you'll take a step out, and you'll do well for a minute, and then it won't go so well. That doesn't mean it was the wrong step. Doesn't mean it was the wrong thing. But sometimes we take our eyes off Jesus, and we've got to refocus. So what is it? What is it that he's calling you to do, asking you to do this morning, or over the last months or years even? Lord Jesus, I thank you this morning. I thank you this morning that you have called us out, that you have called us to more than we think, that you have more for us in this life. There are miracles to be done through hands in this building, in this service right now. There are lives that are going to be changed by the people in this room right now. You've called us to more than Sunday church. You've called us more than youth and college services. You've called us to commune with you and for miracles to happen through us. So Lord, I ask that you be clear right now with us, that you would speak clearly, and that we would listen to what you're asking us to do this morning. As a new pastor's coming in, as things are going to change, as they might be a little difficult to handle when change comes, Lord, I pray that our eyes would remain on you, that our eyes would remain on you, and we would continue to walk with you through the change, through some of the struggle that might come along with that, will probably come along with that. Or that we would celebrate that change, that we would move forward with you, and we'd walk on that water. We're going to worship a little bit more. If you want prayer of any kind, the prayer team's going to go in the back and stand back there. If you are like, I think God's asked me to do this, and you need prayer for that, you're like, I don't know, I need strength to even think of doing that. Go back there and they'll pray for you. They're not going to sit there and counsel you and be like, this is what you should do, and blah, blah, blah. They're just going to pray and agree with you. So prayer team, could you head back there? Can we get the lights down a little bit? And we'll just have just a time of worship and a time of prayer to end service today. Thanks. This is my last time talking to you before then, so thanks for coming. It's good to see you guys, and God be with you.
Let's stand together, and we're going to sing one last song. I like this one. Just that God would speak to us and show us who He is. The expectations that we have are far surpassed by what He has for us, though usually it's uncomfortable, and that's okay. So let's ask Him to move here this morning.